Over the next few weeks, Taehyung took care of everything. He didn't rush into anything. Instead, he spent his days helping out at the orphanage and reflecting on what kind of future he wanted. The children had become attached to him and he found comfort in their easy acceptance of him. Mrs. Park, too, had become a motherly figure, often teasing him or scolding him for slacking off, but it was all in good humor. But in quiet moments, when he was alone or walking through the familiar, cozy halls of the orphanage, his thoughts would inevitably drift to Vian. She had always been a steady presence in his life, even when he hadn't realized it. When they first got married, Taehyung barely noticed her. She was like the quiet wallpaper in the background of his grand life. But now, in the simplicity of their current world, she had become the brightest, most vibrant part of it. It was little things at first, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, her infectious laughter, or the way she always made time for the kids, no matter how busy her day had been. Slowly but surely, those little things became the highlight of his day. He found himself waiting for her to come back from work. Eager to see the looks of surprise and happiness on their face when she saw the progress he'd made with the kids or how he had helped Mrs. Park prepare the dinner. He lived for the small moments they shared, the quiet walks in the evening, the occasional late night talks, and the way she always knew exactly what to say to make him feel at ease. Taehyung wasn't sure when it happened exactly, but one day he woke up and realized something that shook him to his core. He had fallen in love with Ryan, not the slow, inevitable affection that one grows for a partner over time. But the kind of love that knocked the wind out of him. It was an overwhelming, all consuming affection that he hadn't expected to feel, especially not for the woman he had once taken for granted. For the first time in years, he didn't think about his ex girlfriend, the woman who had left him when he lost everything. She had been a superficial part of his life, someone who thrived on the luxury and status that his wealth had provided. But now, in this simpler life, surrounded by people who valued kindness and compassion, he realized how shallow that relationship had been. Ryan, on the other hand, had been with him through the hardest times. Supporting him without expecting anything in return. She didn't care about the money, the status, or the power. She just cared about him, and as that realization settled into his heart, Taehyung knew that he couldn't imagine his life without her. It was around this time that Taehyung was called for the interview. He knew that he had the skills and experience to excel in the job, but more than that, he had a new purpose. He wasn't doing this just to get back to his old life. He was doing it for Ryan, for their future. The interview went well, and within a few weeks, Taehyung was back in the corporate world. Seojun's company was smaller than the one Taehyung had once run, but it was rapidly growing and successful. The job required hard work and dedication, but Taehyung found himself enjoying the challenge. He threw himself into his work with a passion he hadn't felt in years, determined to prove to himself and to Ryan that he could rebuild their lives. As the month passed, Taehyung's new job became more and more demanding, but he never let it consume him the way his previous career had. He made a point to balance his work life with the time he spent at the orphanage and, more importantly, the time he spent with Ryan. They had settled into a comfortable routine, but there was a new layer to their relationship now. An unspoken bond that had deepened as they navigated this chapter of their lives together. One evening, nearly a year after Taehyung had started his new job, Sojun invited him and Ryan to a business party. Was a formal event attended by CEOs, executives, and high profile individuals in the industry. Taehyung was a little apprehensive at first, knowing that the people who had once been his peers would be there. But whenever the calming presence in his life reassured him with a soft smile and a gentle squeeze of his hand. Let's just go and have fun, she said, her eyes twinkling. You have worked hard to get to where you are now, and you deserve to enjoy it. When they arrived at the party, Taehyung was surprised by how much he enjoyed himself. Sojin introduced him to several key people in the industry, and Taehyung felt a sense of pride as he realized how far he had come. Ryan stayed by his side the entire night, her presence a constant source of comfort and support. And then, towards the end of the night, something unexpected happened. As Taehyung was standing with Ryan talking to one of the surgeon's colleagues, he spotted her, his ex. She was across the room, dressed in an expensive gown, laughing with a group of people. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and she gave him a small, almost awkward smile. But instead of the pang of hurt or longing he had expected to feel, Taehyung felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was as if she was just another person in the crowd, someone from his past who no longer had any hold over him. He turned his attention back to Ryan, who was talking animatedly to Seojun's wife. And in that moment, he knew that he had made the right choice. His heart belonged to Ryan. And there was no one else in the world who could ever compare to her. As the party wound down, Taehyung and Ryan stepped outside to get some fresh air. The night was cool, the city lights twinkling in the distance as they stood on the balcony overlooking the skyline. Are you okay? Ryan asked softly, noticing the distant look in his eyes. Taehyung turned to her, a soft smile tugging at his lips. Yeah, I'm more than okay. I'm happy. Van raised an eyebrow, teasing. Happy? Really? Is it because of the party or the free champagne? Taehyung chuckled, shaking his head. No, it's not that. I'm happy because of you, Ryan. You've been my rock through everything. When I lost everything, you were still there, and now I don't know what I would have done without you. Ryan's eyes softened, her heart swelling at his words. He took a deep breath, his hands gently cupping her face as he gazed into her eyes. I realized how much you meant to me, Ryan. I was so blinded by everything else, by the money, the status, my ego, but none of that matters. What matters is you. Ryan's breath hitched, her eyes wide with surprise. She had waited so long to hear those words. And now that they were finally out in the open, she felt like her heart might burst. A soft smile spread across her lips as she leaned into his touch. Taehyung smiled, his heart soaring at her words. He leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers as they stood there wrapped up in each other. A little sob left Ryan's lips, and Taehyung panicked a little. Hey, why are you crying? Ryan wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I've waited so long to hear you say these words. And she sobbed again. Taehyung couldn't help but chuckle and pull her in his arms, smiling softly. For the first time in a long while, everything felt right. He wasn't the same man he had been a year ago, but he was better for it. He had found something far more valuable than wealth or power. He had found love, and with Ryan by his side, he knew that they could face anything the future had in store. As they stood on the balcony, the world around them seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them in their little bubble of happiness. The future was uncertain, but with Ryan, Taehyung knew he had everything he needed, and for the first time in a long while, he felt truly at peace. From that night on, Taehyung was completely, irrevocably webbed for Ryan. He no longer cared about the life he had lost or the people who had abandoned him. All that mattered was the woman who had stayed by his side through thick and thin, and he vowed to spend the rest of his life making sure she knew just how much he loved her. Like that, years went by with love, work, and lots of joy. They moved out of the orphanage. Taehyung again built a company of his own. They kept giving funds to the orphanage every month, visited the place, and stayed there for the weekend. And with that being said, guys, this is the end of this series. I hope you liked it. If you did, like, share, comment, subscribe. Tell me what should I make next, and make sure to follow me on Instagram. Um, the next part of When He Left You at the Altar will be out soon. Till then, stay tuned, keep supporting, keep loving. Love you all, guys. Thank you so much, and bye bye.